Good. How are you?
Yep, very well, thank you.
Well, it's nice to get to hear your voice because your voice in my head is certainly like, okay, this is how Emily might sound, but there's so many accents all over Britain. So it's great to hear
Yep, no,
your.
I've just got a very bog standard, nothing really regional.
Well, I'm Hillary. It's nice to meet you. Thank you for
Nice to
joining me today. I did go ahead and press record, but I can certainly take out anything. It's just so that I won't forget because that would be terrible.
Yeah.
I'm very human, very human. And I wanted to give you an opportunity if you had any questions for me. I've got everything you've sent me right in front of me. Um,
I'm good to go. I'll just take whatever you throw at me.
okay, excellent. Well, I love your hair and I love how you coordinated it with um, with your
Yeah,
blouse.
I feel like
It's
I've even got purple socks on today. I feel very coordinated. Mhm.
wow,
It's
wow.
it's because the sun came out. It's such a rare thing in England that I'm like, right.
That is that bright light coming in from your right side.
What is this thing out there? Whoa, we're not used to that.
We had sunshine yesterday and it was 70 degrees Fahrenheit, but then it's snowing now. So it's
Yeah. So we've got, I think it's about 20 degrees centigrade here today, and it's meant to be the same again tomorrow, and then down to 7 for the weekend.
okay, right.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, I almost that usually I like to introduce the person, but I think it sounds better you introducing yourself and sharing what you choose. So I'll give you kind of my standard intro just so you can hear what it sounds like. And then I can go back and edit out anything. So,
Cool.
welcome to Hill Talks, the podcast. When you listen in, you'll know you're not alone. I'm your host, Hillary Baggett, and I'm glad you're here. And I'm also really happy to introduce Emily, and is it Barclay?
It is Barclay. Yep.
Okay. Emily, you are the first guest on Hill Talks that I have not personally met. So you are coming to us all the way from the United Kingdom, and we're so glad that you're here to join us. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. So, yes, as you say, I'm in the UK, I'm in the east of England. Well, we'll get on to what I do now in due course, so I won't give away the secret. Um, but I am a personal trainer and also a dog walker, and I live rurally with my partner and our 5 dogs and 36 chickens. So that's kind of me in a nutshell.
5 dogs, 36 chickens, a partner of 10 years, and in
Uh-huh.
rural England. That sounds
Mm-hmm.
pretty good.
I like to sort of paint the picture of this lovely rural idyll. Everybody can listen and go, oh, yeah, we can see that. Lovely rural England. Yeah, we've got that. It probably isn't like that, really. But, I like to paint the picture.
That's right. Thank you so much for that. Well, the reason I reached out to Emily is because she started a website and a Facebook group, and she has over 14,000 members, and we're discussing perimenopause. And the demographic that my podcast tends to reach out to is about mid age women, all different faith backgrounds, all different race, and from different countries. And I see the same in your Facebook page. So, my first question is well, I think we probably should let some listeners know what is perimenopause?
That's a good starting point, isn't it? So, we all hear about the menopause, and we, I think this seems to be a global thing that we think it's going to happen to us when we're older. We think we're going to have a couple of hot flashes, and then our periods will stop, and ta da, it'll all be done.
Right.
And then we kind of hit our 40s, mid 40s, for some people, late 30s, and all these other symptoms start creeping in. But we still have periods. So we think, well, this anxiety can't be to do with that. And this night sweats or my stress or any number of things, that can't be to do with anything to do with the menopause because I'm miles off that age wise and I've still got periods. That is perimenopause. It's the time when everything just starts changing from our normal fertile years until we hit the menopause. And it can last, sorry to say this, up to about 10 or 12 years.
Yes. And I will say that the saving grace for me over the Christmas holidays was this Facebook page. It had not occurred to me that all the things I had been going through the last 5 years, I mean, I kind of occurred to me, but I thought, oh, it can't possibly be all to do with this time in my life. I'm 50 years old, so I'm at the right age for it. But it just didn't seem like, wait a minute, maybe I just don't know enough about this to really understand. And I thought I was losing my mind. So I decided to Google perimenopause, and then I did a search on Facebook because maybe there's a group, and I found your group. And the common theme I see on this Facebook group, one, it's very well regulated and monitored, and I really respect that deeply. And it's very supportive. You can ask any question, and there will be a team of women that will come around and support you to say, you know what, you're not alone. And that's kind of the point of my podcast, so that when someone listens in, they know they're not alone. And Peri is one of those things we've just not had the opportunity to really learn about and talk about in an open forum. So while menstruating is usually not something that anyone generally speaks in a public format, but women, we do, and we need that. We need that support, right?
Absolutely. And I find it, I suppose the longer I work in this field, the more it amazes me really. You know, as young girls, we get taught that we'll go through puberty, things will change. Then we get taught about our fertile years. We get taught how pregnancy comes about. We and when women are pregnant, they talk to each other. You know, I've never been pregnant, but wow, I've heard some stories. um, and, but then suddenly we enter this phase when no one really talks about it, and certainly we are, I think, the first generation who are even open to the idea of talking about it. And
Exactly.
I felt so lost. I didn't know what was going on. I thought I was losing the plot. I was having, I mean, I can only describe them as psycho episodes. Like I would just fly off the handle at my poor partner. And I felt like I was having an out of body experience watching this really angry Emily. And yet, actual Emily was going, "What are you doing?" And I'd go out the room and I'd come back in, and another thing.
Oh, woo,
Yeah.
right.
And it seemed completely out of my control. And I was gaining weight, which seemed completely out of my control. And I was exhausted, which seemed completely out of my control. And the doctors didn't have answers for me for about 3.5 years. And that was, it was a difficult stage because there was no one to talk to because I didn't know what I was trying to talk about.
Right. We didn't have the language to have the dialogue. We didn't have the right questions to ask. And then you go to a medical professional, and our poor medical professionals, we think they know everything, right? And that's unfair because they're human as well. And there is a whole new women's medicine that's just becoming so huge, because one of the threads that I see so often on your Facebook page is that people say, my doctor's not believing me, or I'm having this go on the other side of it as well. It's really smart because on there, the professional team that you have offering advice say, hey, don't discount everything that you're thinking and feeling. And it may not all be perimenopause. You need to follow up also with your doctor. Get your thyroid checked, get these other things followed up, because our bodies are trying to communicate with us and it's not always very clear.
Absolutely. And one thing that I say a lot is yes, our doctors may not have that much understanding about menopause and certainly not about perimenopause, but actually, we need to work with them rather than just going in and feeling that unless we're very, very abrupt, we're not going to get anywhere. But actually, if we go in and say, look, I've been tracking my symptoms and I can
Right.
show you that they go with my cycle, can we see if this is a hormonal thing?
Yeah.
So that you're bringing your side of the story to the table rather than just turning up going, I don't know, I just feel a bit rubbish. Because that
Right.
doesn't help them. How they can't to go in and go, I don't know, and then come back and go on Facebook going, well, my doctor was rubbish, is really unfair on the poor doctor, you know.
Exactly. It's so true. And so we have to really hold ourselves accountable to tracking those symptoms, and to be partnering then with our medical professionals, because it's that teamwork together, because only we know exactly what's going inside our bodies and our minds and our emotions, right? And to be able to explain that and to document it, it really gives kind of a very clear picture then. And the doctors can run tests, and I've had it done as well, but they'll look at just your hormone levels and they're like, you haven't finished yet. You're not in menopause yet, which is really the culmination. When they say you've hit menopause, it means all these things have stopped, which is certainly not helpful, right? When we need the
And
support is the during.
exactly. And this is the really difficult thing with perimenopause, is that our hormones are, I mean, they're all over the place. They're on a crazy roller coaster ride, and they're just sort of taking us along with them. And so again, now don't get me wrong, I do have strong opinions about the education of our doctors, and that they are not educated enough in menopause. However, on an individual level, actually, when we turn up with our hormones all over the place, they can do any amount of testing, but it's not going to show them anything conclusive, because one day it'll show one thing, the next day it'll show something else, the following day it'll show something different again. So to go in there all guns blazing, you must test me for perimenopause, and the doctor, poor thing, is going, well, I kind of can't, because
Right.
your hormones can't give me a clear picture at the moment. Which is why we always encourage people to rule out thyroid, to rule out vitamin deficiencies, to rule out all these other things, so that with the list of symptoms and everything else ruled out, the doctor is in a stronger position to go, okay, yeah, I see what you're saying. This is all going with your cycle. This looks like it must be hormonal. Right, let's address that.
Mm. Wow. Well, I want to circle back just a little bit to see how and why you developed this Facebook and website. I mean, that's really, whoa, what an accomplishment. And I think I've only seen two Facebook pages dedicated to perimenopause, and it's nothing against the other one. And I don't know their background or the person at all. So I don't know if it's your competitor or, but I wanted to hear, how do you come up with this idea? I want to start a private Facebook group about perimenopause.
I think the short answer is I'm an idiot. That's the longer answer. So
Brave. I would say brave and courageous.
So my experience was that I started experiencing my perimenopause symptoms when I was 39. And I had 3.5 years of going backwards and forwards to the doctors. I worked it out the other day, 13 different visits to the doctor. And I haven't got the number to hand, but I think if I had had to pay for it, I looked up what it would have cost me in the US, and I think it would have cost me something like $7,000.
Wow.
Yeah, which is crazy, to just get no answers. And
Right.
eventually,
$7,000 for nothing, right?
yeah,
Oh, that would have been
and
frustrating. So,
eventually,
luckily in Britain you have socialized healthcare, correct?
yes. So
And I've
exactly,
used that system when I lived there a few summers. I had to use the system, and I thought, oh goodness, I don't have insurance. They were like, welcome to England. We take care of people.
yeah, totally. And so I was very lucky, but I worked out the numbers because actually, because I'm writing a book and I needed the numbers to be in there. But anyway, that's an aside. Anyway, fast forward 3.5 years, and eventually I sat down with a doctor who listened to me and with whom I was working as an equal, which was nice. And we both agreed that it was one of two things. And we both agreed that it was either chronic fatigue or it was perimenopause. And I said, well, I really don't think it's chronic fatigue, because I don't have any of the pain that people experience with that. And I can still go about my day-to-day life. And actually, the people I know who have chronic fatigue really, they're not just quite tired as I was. They are, that's another
They're out.
league.
Right, right. They're on the couch in the bed. They cannot get up because their body doesn't have the strength, right?
Exactly. So I came home with this word perimenopause and thought, oh, I've got a word for it. This is amazing. Excuse my dogs. I
One
apologize.
of your dogs joining us. We're happy. We're very friendly to dogs on Hill Talks.
um, and so I kind of came home and Googled around it all, and as you do, as you shouldn't, but as everybody does. And I was really surprised that everything I found focused on menopause, focused on being in your 50s, focused on being past your periods.
Right.
And a lot of people in these groups and on these forums and things were talking about their grandchildren, and they were just in a completely different phase of life to me. I was 42 by this point. And
Wow.
now, okay, that's only maybe a decade, but it's a decade in which really quite a lot changes.
A lot happens in that decade. And being
Yeah,
now that I've just entered 50, yes, I would not have wanted to kind of miss out or be stressed in that 40s or 50s. I
yeah.
plan to enjoy many more decades, right?
So I felt that there was nothing talking to me, a slightly immature, child-free person with too many dogs who was experiencing these symptoms. I thought, well, I'll just see if I can find a few experts and pull them together and put together a website. And, it might help a couple of people. Honestly, that's all I really thought. And then I kind of asked a couple of nutritionists who I knew and a couple of mindset people and said, do you want to be involved? I've kind of got this idea. And yeah, we'd love to. And then I asked in a couple of well-being Facebook groups that I was in for well-being practitioners, hi guys, do any of you work with women in the perimenopause? If so, I'd love to have a chat. So I started with a couple of experts in the UK, then got a few in Canada, then New Zealand, then Australia. And suddenly it was sort of snowballing. I was thinking, okay, this is interesting. And I'd started the Facebook group at around the same time. The
Wow.
second
That's
anniversary of it. The second anniversary of it will be May this year. So
Wow. That is no
yeah,
small undertaking. Having just started a website this year and started a podcast, that takes a lot of time, effort, energy, and discipline. And sounds like you reached out to so many experts and professionals. And I just got on the website today, and to see the number of faces and professionals and their credentials, these aren't people who are just saying, I think this might be a good way to go. They are truly professionals with experience.
absolutely. And ranging across a lot of different disciplines intentionally. So we have some yoga for menopause specialists. We have obviously a doctor who specializes in the menopause, funnily enough. We have HRT specialists. We have Chinese medicine specialists, so who look at things from a very different point of view, much more about the holistic. I mean, that's just scratching the surface of it. But what I wanted from the start was nobody ever to feel as lost as I had felt, and to offer the range of experts so that every woman turning up could say, well, actually, I don't like X, Y, and Z as a way to manage my health. I much prefer A, B, C. Oh, look, that means I can go and speak to such and such a person. Because I found that in a lot of other groups that I was being nosy by hanging around in, that people were pushing
Sure.
either just the HRT route or just the natural route. And I thought, well, that's not really helping anyone, because a lot of women might want to start off by addressing their nutrition. Then they might want to, alongside that, look at their fitness. And then at the same time, they might want to be dealing with some past traumas that need to just get resolved now that they don't really have the same resilience because of their hormones. And then there might come a time that they go, actually, do you know what? It's time for me to go and speak to the doctor. So then they need that information. And hence the ridiculously wide range of experts was so that every woman, as she turns up, goes, oh my God, I feel so lost. Thank goodness I found you. I'm not going crazy. And that seems to be the starting
Right.
point for everybody. And then,
It it really is.
yeah,
We're probably crying in a puddle, and we think maybe there's someone on Facebook that can help me, which even my children will say, "Oh, Facebook is for middle-aged people." Okay, fine. Excellent. All are welcome, none are judged. And finding those resources, and it's true because there's not a single prescription for that will fit every person, because our bodies and our minds and our experiences and our past are all so unique. So we need to have a variety of programs and plans and professionals and exercise, diet, talking to someone, releasing past traumas, all so critical.
absolutely. And even when you just look at the list of potential symptoms, some women never experience, for example, 25% of women will never have a hot flash. And yet that's the thing that we all
Right.
think everybody will experience. So taking that in mind, given that we all have a different sort of cocktail of the symptoms, it makes perfect sense to me anyway that we're going to want different ways to manage it. and different ways at different phases, because in the early days of perimenopause, a lot of women really struggle with anxiety and loss of confidence, loss of self-esteem, potentially imposter syndrome at work, and all sorts of horrible things that really pull the rug out from underneath them. And then
Yes,
nowhere
let me just
near,
affirm that for all the women out there. I have personally experienced that. Getting back into
yeah,
the workforce after having children, the confidence is just on the ground floor, right? And to build that up, and you think, gosh, what is my value and worth? And your hormones are working against you, and your body is shutting down, the metabolism is slowing. It's a challenge.
yeah. And at that point, you're nowhere near any of the stereotypical stuff. You're not anywhere near the hot flashes. You're not anywhere near the periods changing. But actually, it's all part of the same journey. I hate that with the way they use it in like all the TV, shows. Oh, my
Sure.
journey.
Oh,
But
as if
but it
it's
is,
a romantic adventure.
yeah. But it is a bit of a journey. We start off thinking, oh my God, what on earth is happening? And eventually we piece the pieces together and we find the right route for us, each individually, ideally, to feel more like us again. May not be feeling anything like 20-year-old us anymore, but more like the core value of who each of us is, so that we're ready to, really fly for the rest of our life.
To carry on, exactly. And because this is audio, you wouldn't be able to see that Emily did a great kind of trajectory of the jet taking off into the sky. And that's
Sorry, I
really
talk with my hands so much.
I do too. I do too. And just to be able to encourage people of that, this discussion, while uncomfortable for some, will truly shed light, because we can feel like we have no idea, like someone has taken over our bodies and our minds, and it can feel almost like a possession, if you will. And
Yeah,
it's like, wait a minute, I'm not acting like myself. I don't sound like myself. Why am I speaking like this to the people I love and to the people I like? And so I so appreciate you sharing that. So vital. So, really, it sounds like the genesis of the Facebook page and the website came out of your own need and desire, and you started reaching out, and people started saying yes. Wow.
yeah.
And
and
that's the
and frankly, the universe just turned up and went, yeah, we'll make this happen. And I went, oh, okay, I'll just be the person who kind of does it. So even right down to the very first stage, which was, registering the website domain, I thought, well, I'm going to call it Perimenopause Hub, assuming the domain is available. Go on, Google it, as you do. Perimenopausehub.com available. Now, to somebody in rural England, finding that you can access .com is like, ooh, universe says
right.
yes, go global. And then obviously, and then obviously with getting experts around the globe and so on and so forth, I was like, okay, I see. And still today, it amazes me in a really happy way when I see people joining the Facebook group and they live in, places I've never heard of, in deepest Africa, or
Yeah.
somewhere I have no idea where it is in India, or, and I'm just like, this is amazing. It's reaching
Yes.
women everywhere.
It truly is, because if you have ovaries in your body, you are experiencing this.
Yeah.
And
And
it's
if you've
true.
had your ovaries ripped out, then you're experiencing it even worse.
Oh, right. Yes, for people that have had a total hysterectomy with the ovaries removed, it is a shock to every part of your body and mind. Absolutely. So, what's interesting that you said is that the most common challenges that women face vary so greatly, but there is sometimes a little bit of commonality. Is there a common thread that you see that really stands out?
So the common things that come up time and time again are anxiety, rage, like really short temper, fatigue, poor sleep, any others that are always coming up. Oh, and loss of libido and painful sex.
Okay, well, and I appreciate you sharing those things, because it's really hard to ask those questions, right? I mean, people will sometimes ask a mother if their mother is still living, or a sister, but you may not have the same symptoms at all, right? My mother had a hysterectomy at when she was 26 after she had me, but she still had her ovaries. So, as she was going through a divorce, in her 40s and she's going through menopause, and I was a teenager. Whew, that was, yeah, Emily's face, you can't see it, but she's cringing with, oh my goodness, that must have
That
been really difficult.
that is
And my mom
cool.
does listen. So my heart goes out to my mom. So Kathy, thanks for listening. And you didn't have control over these things, and certainly back in the 80s there was not this support system. So we're really grateful for the internet and social media to connect people so that they don't feel like they are going through this on their own. Oof.
But
Wow.
interesting what you say, Hilary, just quickly. That perfect storm of mum going through this while daughter is a teenager. We all expect teenagers to be angry and tired and difficult and awkward and all of those things. And we're only going through the reverse of that. So we should cut ourselves some slack and go, oh God, okay, I was pretty horrible at 16. It stands to reason I might be pretty horrible at 46, but I'll come through it because I did then and I will again.
That is so key. And I'm so glad you brought that up. One, for having grace for ourselves and for our teenagers, because it's just kind of the reverse. But we have all of these expectations that we have of ourselves. We have all this life experience, and our lives are busy as adult women, right? We have our work,
Yeah.
we have perhaps a family or a partner, we have our dogs. There are so many other things going on. So cut yourself some slack, give yourself some grace. And, what would you say to your teenage self going through this, right? And a lot of us, though, cannot remember how horrible we were. Unfortunately, I do remember how horrible I was as a teenager. My father reminds me regularly what a challenge I was at 17. And so it's hard to tell sometimes. Is it because I'm going through hormones? Is the situation happening in my family around me? Maybe it's a little bit of everything. So, yeah, I love that message of giving ourselves grace. You have so many resources, and with your permission, I'll put a link on the website at hillbaggett.com so that someone can easily find how to find you. And it is Perimenopause Hub on
Yep.
Facebook. So it's spelled out, it's spelled the same in Britain as it is in
Yeah, I
America.
wanted to keep it really simple because all of us are experiencing brain fog and zero memory and all the rest. So I wanted to keep it really simple.
Really simple. Brain fog is a real thing. Absolutely. I just got off the a telehealth call with my doctor an hour before this call, and she was so supportive. She said, "Hillary, we're going to set up these professionals, have a conversation with this counselor, have a conversation with your OBGYN about the perimenopause symptoms." So, for women out there, start these dialogues early with your doctors. Don't just think you have to wait until your annual pap smear to do that. It's time to start asking those questions and to come together for sure. Is there anything, Emily, that you would like people to know about perimenopause?
Um, I think we've covered most of it, but I think the thing that's the message I always want to get across whenever I'm talking in any capacity is that the more we track our symptoms, and I would anybody listening who has daughters encourage them to start young, because that
Mm.
is massively how we get to know our body. It's how we start to understand our cycle when it's normal, so that we can see when it's changing, and frankly, it tells us when we're going to be full of energy. It tells us when we're going to be low on energy. It tells us when we're going to be in on good form for work things, when we ought to just shut ourselves away in a quiet room and just do the accounts. Because actually, we all, throughout every cycle, we change, and perimenopause just massively amplifies that. But if we can all start tracking at the very latest by our mid 30s, we've got ourselves ahead of the game and we've got a superpower.
Oh, I love that. We do have a superpower, and it's when we can track and document it ourselves. That is excellent. That so much good information. Wow. Well, I wanted to give you a little bit of background on Emily. She's so fun, and I really enjoy listening to her voice. She did a little dance, and with her permission, she'll send me a photo so you can see. She's got this fantastic purple hair, kind of coiffed up. It reminds me of that soccer player, Megan. Oh, Rapinoe. is the American soccer player. And then she's
Yep.
got this lovely kind of magenta purple blouse with some great flowers on it. And she said, I think even your socks are purple. Is that what you said?
Today they are, and my oh no, I've got my computer glasses on, so you can't see these, but my normal glasses are also purple. I'm having a bit of a purple phase at the
A
moment.
purple day. And the sun is shining in England. So we're celebrating that today. Today in Colorado, we are having a little bit of snow. Yesterday, we had 70 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's really kind of funny. But I love that you're so open to share. And you said your past jobs that stood out to you, because many of us have had many jobs along the line. But in the past, you were a wine merchant, a
Yep.
ski holiday representative, and you're still a personal trainer. How long have you been personal training?
I qualified just after I turned 40. I had that crisis, as, as so many people do, of leaving a job just before my 40th birthday. And I actually put a thing on Facebook saying, how do you decide what to do when you're a grown up?
I
And
love that. I think I'm still trying to find that out.
yeah, and interestingly, maybe not interestingly, I went and saw a friend who's a life coach, and she wanted to help me work out my core values at that point. And I didn't really know what that meant, but we went and did it anyway. And so I became a personal trainer because it was the quickest and easiest way, given background and all the rest, that I could be in a position to help women feel better about themselves. Little did I know that
Mm.
a few short years after that, the hub would come into existence and would take that need to help women to feel better to a slightly larger scale.
To a global scale, truly, because I will be chatting with someone in Australia, India, New Zealand, Canada, and Great Britain all in the same day. It's really, really fantastic. And the reason you and I met, that I even had the courage to reach out to ask you for this interview, is because you said, okay, I need a little sunshine. Everybody, if you've got sunshine in your country, take a picture and post it. And then you reached back out and said, wait a minute, where is that? So we
It
started
was
talking about
stunning. There
Colorado.
were mountains. I was happy.
We do have a very stunning view when the skies are clear. And I think they call it a bluebird day when there's
Yes,
snow everywhere and then the skies are blue. It's glorious. Emily was just kind of singing to herself up with gratitude, right? Oh, that is great. So, your top interests I have down are skiing, wine, dogs, and your friends.
yes.
And is it in that order or did the dogs come first?
Oh, that's a difficult one. I mean, the dogs are always here, but I've I've been skiing since I was 5, and I used to live in the French Alps, so skiing is still really, really important. Um, they're all important in different ways.
Well, I hope someday, Emily, and here is a true and honest invitation. We're only about 2 hours from skiing, so maybe someday when we're over all of this COVID stuff, I just got my skis tuned up for the end of the season, but maybe you can come over and we can go and ski together and talk all about all of the changes since COVID.
I would love to. I've never skied in the States, so I would love to.
Oh, that
I've
would
only
be
ever skied
lovely.
in Europe.
Oh, well, sometimes we, on this show, we will talk about faith. And I loved what you said because you were very honest. You said, I consider myself loosely Christian, but not devout. So, what do you mean by that?
So what I mean by that, I was raised a Christian. I was born into a loosely Christian family, insofar as we aren't any other religion. The schools I went to, we had church, we had chapel, we had all of those things, and so I still consider that to be a part of me, but it's not something I actively seek out day to day or week on week. However, I was quite sort of pleasantly surprised some years ago. I was going through a particularly difficult stage, which I won't bore your listeners with because, frankly, it's a very long story. Anyway, but I got invited to a friend's daughter's christening. And I went to that, and she was a friend who I'd gone to school with. And so all the hymns were ones that I knew inside out. And the feeling of belonging, relief, calmness, all of those positive things that I know for a lot of people, day to day religion provides them. And I don't seek that out day to day because I seek those same feelings from community and from friends and from other places. But in that particular time when some very, very bad things were happening that I couldn't talk to anybody about, having that sense
Mm,
of belonging and not needing to think about it. Just, I knew all the words to the hymns, I knew how it worked, I knew the structure of
mm.
the service. That still tells me that there is still a part of me, however loosely I consider myself to be a Christian, there is definitely a part of me that is.
I love that. And I'm doing a series on different faith practices so that people can hear, and that not everyone, I also consider myself Christian and I do attend church weekly, but I think it's so helpful for other people to hear that you found that home. And even if it's not a daily or weekly practice, that familiarity, that community, that unity, and kind of that peace and calm, which is such a gift. So I appreciate you sharing so honestly.
And also, as I've referred to earlier, I credit the universe with taking a lot of control of how the hub has panned out. Now, if I were more religious, I'd probably say that that was thanks to God. But in my kind of take on the world, I definitely think there's been a larger power at play than just me doing stuff.
Absolutely. We can give God the credit if he's the creator of the universe, right? That's
Yeah.
okay too. Well, excellent. Well, I think we've covered my primary. Let's see, we went over what menopause is. We're going to provide some resources, how and why you created the Facebook page and the website, the most common challenges that women face. And I think that's amazing. If it's okay, I'd like to transition then to my kind of fun rapid fire questions. Is that okay with you?
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to these.
And this will be a surprise for me because Emily is very wise. She said, "Well, I'll just answer those in a moment." I said, "Great." So I love it. Okay, Emily, first, what is your favorite word?
I was thinking about this when I was walking one of the dogs just earlier. Now, I love collective nouns. So I think my favourite word is escargotoire, which is the collective noun for snails.
Wow, that is the most unique answer on that one. Escargotois, snails. Now, do
Yeah,
you eat them as well, or you just like the sound of the word?
I just like the sound of the word, and I just like collective nouns. As an aside, it's a wedge of swans. Did you know that?
I did not. I did.
Sorry. I have some very
Excellent.
random interests.
That will be, well, I love it. I think your brain goes down as many rabbit trails as mine, and I love it. So maybe we'll have to talk again about all those funny things. Okay, next, what is your least favorite word?
Should.
Stood?
Should. I hate it because
Oh,
it puts,
should. S H
yeah,
O U L D.
ULD, yeah, because it puts external pressure on you and it is never about what you actually want.
Oh, I love that. I love that. So let's expunge the word should do something from our vocabulary because it's
Yeah.
really, you're right, it's someone else's expectation or what we think someone else's expectation is of us. I love that. Next question. What brings you the greatest joy?
Laughter.
Laughter. Absolutely. And is there a particular person whose laughter you enjoy the most?
Ooh. It's lots of people's actually, and it's the thing that I'm finding the hardest with this whole COVID lockdown is not being able to be in a group of friends and just laugh.
Absolutely. And I do hope our listeners have gotten to have some laughs today with how we've shared because it is so important to kind of lighten up a little bit about this. Perimenopause is nothing to be ashamed of. It's something that every woman in the universe, all of our bodies in this world go through this at one time or another. Oh, that's great. All right, what are you most grateful for today?
The sunshine.
Today it is the sunshine. I can see it coming in on your right side. Oh,
Yeah.
so lovely. Is there a sound? Next question. What sound or noise do you love?
That kind of crunch of snow underfoot
Okay, yes.
and the
I
swish of skiing, the swish that the snow makes when you turn when you ski. Snow.
oh, when you're carving in the powder. Oh, yes, we just had some. I was just skiing last week. I love that as well. All right. Is there a sound or noise that you strongly dislike?
I really struggle with children screeching. I like happy noises from children, but when a child is having a complete meltdown, that just goes straight to the core.
It does. It's like nails on a chalkboard for many of us, right? And since most people don't know, younger people this day won't know what a chalkboard is, right? To have that sound, but the screeching of a young child. Oh, right. Is there a profession other than your own? Because you've tried so many, though. So, is there something else you would like to attempt?
So there's one thing that I would love to have been able to do in a parallel universe, but I know it won't happen in this lifetime. I would love to be a an interpreter between the languages of Romanian and English for the police.
Wow, that's really unique.
And it's
It's
not
very
what you're
specific,
expecting
too.
me to say.
Yeah, if you could see the look on my face, I was not expecting that.
I've always
Excellent.
had a fascination with the Romanian language, and certainly over here, Romanian people don't tend to get a particularly good, they're not treated as nicely as English people or French people or German people or whatever.
Yeah.
And I would love to be able to be in a position to stand up for them and help in the case of some awful legal thing going wrong.
Oh, you have such a heart for helping people. I can see that and I hear that. Wow, that's really lovely. Thank you for sharing that. Next question. Is there a profession that you are so thankful you will never have to do?
Anything medical, which is
Any
ridiculous given that I run a thing for perimenopause, but anything actually hands-on, anything involving blood and bodily functions, and oh no.
That is truly the most common response that I get from everyone I interview. Yeah,
Like, I'm more than
absolutely.
happy for people to talk about all these things. I'm very happy, I'm very open talking about them. But if I actually physically had to be there, no.
Sure, that's right. Talking about something and being there is very different. I think my husband still regrets looking up after I had given birth to our son when the afterbirth was proceeding out. And I didn't mean for him to look there at that. I'm sure that looked traumatic as well. So, goodness. Okay, our final question today. What would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
Welcome. Cake is over there, wine is over there.
I love it. I love it. Emily Barclay, you have been a pure delight and a joy. And I so thank you for the laughter, for the honesty, the vulnerability. And we truly hope that women out there will go and check out the Perimenopause Hub. One of the things I really like about Hill Talks podcast is that we're not trying to sell or promote anything, but we're trying to be resources to point people in the directions. And should any of us write books in the future, well, that's down the line. There's nothing that's on the shelf ready to buy. But just to be a resource to help women out there, we are truly a sisterhood.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Emily, thank you for joining us. You have just been awesome. Have a wonderful, I hope you get many more sunny days.
So do I.
Oh, oh, I did have one question. I'm going to resume the recording. You can get all your coughing out. I'll edit all that out. Take a sip of water if you need. um, what is the challenge of running such a large Facebook page?
Yeah. It's interesting, certainly. We're now at, I think it was 15,700 women when I looked just earlier. And in the last week, I've brought in a team of moderators. So it's not just all me now. And oh my God, the relief.
So smart. Well, it's true. We start something and we think, oh, yeah, I can manage this by myself. I mean, I am a one woman production team. I do the recording, the editing, the sound mixing, I bring in the songs. And if you do have a favorite song, I will ask you that as well. And I use that in during a little bit of the episode and then at the end so people get to know a little bit more about you and what's meaningful to you.
Awesome.
So you've had to kick out a couple of people, is that correct?
Yeah. So I have two really important rules. One is no self-promotion unless people are experts and are, people that I have put on the website as experts. And people sometimes seem to think that doesn't necessarily apply to them. And in the early days, I'd be like, oh, excuse me, please don't do that. And more recently, I'm just like, just get out. just get out. um,
Right. And by
and then
self promotion, you mean someone coming on to try to sell something. Is that what you mean?
yeah.
Okay. Because I had to
Um,
be very careful in asking you. And I said, well, I think this podcast could really help some women. I don't make any money off of it. So it's always up to you to choose.
yeah, no, I don't mean like that at all. I mean people who come in and go, hey, I've got this great thing that's going to make everything better for you. PM me for details. And then the person suddenly
Right.
finds that they're being asked for hundreds and hundreds of dollars for something that is just snake oil. That's where I get cross. Um, and my only other big rule is that we don't go down the rabbit hole of diets, restrictive weight loss diets,
Hmm.
because they just make you feel rubbish. And
Right.
I don't want anybody in that group to feel any more rubbish than she already does with her symptoms. I don't want her to start the day getting on the scales and going, oh, I'm a failure. Because the number on the scales does not tell them, doesn't tell anybody how much of a success or a failure you are. The number in
That's
your
right.
clothes does not tell anybody how much of a success or failure you are. How you interact with individual humans, how you interact with animals, what your place is in the world. That's what tells people whether you're a decent human, not a number on the
Hmm.
scales.
Oh, I love that. I'm so glad we got back on for that because you being a human, how you interact with people, how you treat dogs and animals in your life, those are things that truly matter. I love that. Oh, well, you are an inspiration to me, and you're super fun and positive, and I love that you're willing to boot off the people, one who are either impersonating women or are not being helpful or trying to sell something that, is not medically proven to do. So, certainly a caution for women out there, buyer beware, right? And to go to a
Yeah,
place that's a hub that is safe and secure. And hey, these are experts in their field. They are not recommending that you cut out every carbohydrate, right? They are not saying you should never eat meat. They are not saying any of those things. So I appreciate that.
absolutely. And I've realized, and I actually said this on a live that I did this morning, I've realized I've become a bit of a mother hen to the whole group. And I'm like, no, I'm protective of you. No, I will not have people selling awful things to you. No, I will not have you being made to feel worthless because of a diet company. No, I will protect you all from that. And I sort of want to put my arms around everybody in the group and go, no, 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 come and be protected. Come on, come and be protected.
And we appreciate that. You say you have no children, and now you have over 15,000.
I know, awkward, right?
Well, at least you didn't have to birth that many, right? But you get to nurture and protect, and I love that.
Yeah, it's a very privileged position that I'm in.
Oh,
It really is.
excellent. Well, I have your website, I have your Facebook page details, and if there's pictures that you would like to send, and it can be of just you, it could be you and your partner, it can be you with your dogs and chickens, whatever you like. It can be many because you'll have your own little page that people can refer to, and it'll give them a little bit of insight into you. I would greatly appreciate that. And if you have a song that's like, yep, this is the song that is most meaningful, or when you were going through that initial Peri, what's that song that kind of got you through that period? So that would be great. Oh,
Yeah,
didn't
the
intend that
song that got
pun.
me through that is probably a little bit too sweary for all of this. So I'll
Oh,
tone it back a bit.
I try to really keep it clean. I work very hard on my language on the podcast for sure, but sometimes, yes, there is a time and place for that as well. So that would be great. Well, you can send that to
Awesome.
me maybe in the next week. That would be lovely. Thank you so very much for joining me.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
Take care.